Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video. This is not a drill. Lemax Spooky Town has released their 2022 collection, and we're about to go through every building that they have released this year. For Spooky Town this year, there are technically 53 new Halloween pieces, 4 sight and sound buildings, 13 new lighted buildings, and 10 new table accents, 14 new figurines, and 12 spooktacular accessories. Today we're going to be covering the sights and sound pieces as well as the lighted buildings. Let's get right into it. We're going to start today's review off with one of the most anticipated pieces in this year's collection, and that is the only carnival ride that was debuted by Lemax, aka the Count Bad Bonanza. Before we get into it, I'm going to read a short description that Lemax provided for this piece on their website. A ride for those who wish to fly like our favorite Count Dracula. Step aboard the Count's Bad Bonanza and become airbound on one of the charismatic purple bats. As you glide up and down, you can catch a glimpse of Dracula himself, surveying his ride creation from on high. Don't forget to look down to see a coffin or two on the ground for added thrill factor. Now this is confirmed to be a sights and sound piece. We have some amazing lighting going on here, lighting up the rotating bats as Dracula is narrating this whole ride experience from up high. I really love the touch with the classic Gothic windows and the Gothic spire on the right-hand side. I think that Lemax realized that these are things they should keep details on, and so they added them. They didn't leave them blank, and that's really great to see. I think from head to toe, this piece is just decked out. We have the Count's Bad Bonanza sign at the top, featuring Dracula himself right across the way, and it's all perched on this really cool jagged rock, so it's giving that, cave-esque kind of vibe that you would figure bats and Dracula would be hiding or living in, almost like a vampire cavern type situation. And then moving into the riders, it looks like we have human riders who are dressed up for Halloween, and I think that's going to be perfect for anyone who has a Lemax Spooky Town Carnival going on within their Spooky Town. I think that this is just the perfect addition for another carnival piece without being too tacky. I think that really it kind of hones in on the darker nature and the darker decor with some new colors that we haven't quite seen featured before, like the purples in a ride. So I think it just adds some great momentum and a different type of ride to Spooky Town. Moving down to the bottom sector, we can see there's a few different lights lighting up what looks to be little like chests and coffins. We have some red and purple and green lights down there. So I feel like no detail was spared on this piece. It's going to be an instant hit with collectors, and I'm so excited to see it in person. Dr. Gorys Laboratory. This was one of the most anticipated pieces in this year's lineup because it is one of the 2 pieces that Lemax actually had previewed before the full reveal. Before we dive in farther, let's hear the description for the piece. Spooky science truly comes to life at Dr. Gorys Laboratory. A series of vibrant lighting tubes reveal the results of some of Dr. Gorys' most recent experiments. Dare you take a closer look? The doc himself is waiting to greet you at the door. Be careful though, you never know if he might need an extra arm or leg. Now let's take a closer look at this piece. This is a lighted building, meaning there is no sights or sounds incorporated. We don't have any moving pieces and no narration with the piece itself. I think that could have been really cool, but still the fact that it's a lighted building and it has so much going on is really exciting. I think one of the most important things to call out about this piece that I noticed right away is the color scheme. There is just so many different unique and fresh colors going on here from a Lemax Spooky Town perspective. We have these in the upper left-hand corner, these like aquamarine, blue-green test tubes with bubbles inside them. Below that, we have an even deeper blue light, and then we have this yellow and green on the right-hand side with the test tubes and the radiation light, and then the huge bulb you see on the right-hand side that's pulsing yellow. I just think this is a really cool mix of like aqua and blue colors that we don't see too often in Spooky Town, and I think that makes it really unique. And I love how we have a character to center in on here, which is Dr. Gory. You can kind of like focus the piece around him, and he's just another one of those villains you can add to your Spooky Town. no, this is technically not like a classic horror monsters piece, but I think it really plays into that theme, and it's going to look great next to Frankenstein's Laboratory, Vampire Caverns, like anything really cool like that. So I'm really excited to see this one in person. I think that there's so much to offer here, the bubbles and the test tubes, and the whole story that kind of goes along with this. I think it's definitely a 10 out of 10 piece, and maybe going to be one of the most popular for this year's collection. I'm excited to see how collectors incorporate this into their villages. I even expect some to maybe create landscapes or toxic pools, or more testing areas around it, and kind of almost make it a theme for their village. This will really allow people who are interested in, Frankenstein to expand on that narrative within their spooky town. So like I said, I cannot wait to see how this turns out in all collectors' villages. Here is the last ditch gas and salvage. Like the last piece, which was Dr. Gorys Laboratory, this piece was also previewed by Lemax before the full reveal. Before we dive in deeper, let's hear the description for this piece. Ever wondered what the last gas station before hell looks like? Well, wonder no more, thanks to this amazingly detailed creation. A team of handy zombie staff are ready to fill your cursed vehicle with the fuel you need to try and escape. But we can't promise you'll be successful. Demonic headstones and fiery flames aplenty, this is certainly a gas station that you will never forget. Now, like Dr. Gorys Laboratory, Last Ditch is also a lighted building, meaning there's no movement here and no narration or sounds included. I think that is kind of a missed opportunity, but you know what? I'm not even mad about it, because I think that there's still so much going on, and the fact that this is just a lighted building and it's decked from head to toe just speaks to the detail included in this year's collection. I think Lemax really focused on making sure from head to toe these pieces had everything on them, and it does not disappoint. There's not a piece, a part of this piece you can look at right now and say that it is not done up to the max. I think it's turned out so great. We have that broken arm off on the top right sign, all the way to a few zombies climbing throughout, and then I love the lights that are right above the words Last Ditch. I think that gives it a real touch of this dingy little gas station that you do not want to pull up to at night, and I think that's great. Lastly, we have those gas pumps at the bottom, along with some tombstones and another mechanic down on the left-hand side. I think that this piece is really special because it's a Wasteland themed piece, and we only have one other Wasteland themed piece in Spooky Town, which is the Wasteland Pubs. I think this is going to look great right next to the pub. All those bikers, whoever's going up to the pub for a drink, can go and gas up right after and be on their way. I think that those two will go perfectly hand in hand, and I know so many collectors want to get their hands on this piece. It's super exciting, and I can't believe that Lemax brought back that Wasteland theme, so it might mean that they could revive it even more in the future. So I think it definitely means there's hope for the future for this section of Spooky Town. I do expect a lot of creators to also revamp their Wasteland themes if they're going to get this piece this year. I think it opens up a whole new world of possibilities, and kind of reopens, I should say, that sector of Spooky Town that's zombie and Wasteland themed. So again, very excited to see how this piece is incorporated. This is one of my favorite pieces of this year's collection, and that is Crypt of the Lost Pumpkin Souls. Before we get into it, let's read a quick description that Lemax wrote for this building. Have you ever wondered where pumpkins go to die? Well, wonder no more. This Spooky Town seasonal castle is decorated head to toe with the ghoulish Halloween pumpkins. If you look closely, you'll see the Pumpkin Crypt Keeper himself, waiting to welcome you to the great pumpkin patch beyond. Follow the advice of the detailed signs and turn back while you still can. This piece is really interesting to me because it is another lighted building. That means there's no sights or sounds, we don't have any narration, or really any movement on the piece itself. We do have some really cool lighting with the flame torches that are pulsating on the tops and the sides, as well as that huge jack-o'-lantern facade at the front. We do have a nice purple light that's highlighting the Crypt Keeper himself, which is really cool, so we have another character that we can focus on in this piece. I think this is going to be a huge hit with collectors, just because, again, it has all that pumpkin theming, and that tends to do really well over the years, and that part of Spooky Town is probably one of the biggest, honestly. I really love a lot of the cemetery theming around the bottom. It'll make it really easy to incorporate to anyone's kind of crypt or cemetery themes already. And I just think this is going to be a great marrying of themes, with the cemetery and pumpkin themed items. So we're going to see it incorporated in a lot of different ways from Spooky Town. I do want to call out that around the backhand side, you kind of see this cool green, like pulsating chamber, which I thought was like a really nice touch. Usually pieces are much more detailed from the front, and to see that this is really 360 attention here, I think it makes a lot of sense. Next up is That's a Wrap, Mummy Mortuary. Lemax offers the following description. When it comes to this spooky town, there is no other way to commemorate a passing than a good old-fashioned mummification. No fewer than 4 Egyptian mummies adorn the front of this mortuary, and a sneaky peek inside the window shows you what you are in for when your time comes. There are fun nods to ancient Egyptian culture all over this building, and it gets more detailed the more you look at it. The perfect addition to a model town full of ancient spirits. Now, this year's Spooky Town collection has a building for everyone, and this is no exception right here. I was so happy to see this piece because they're bringing back a hint of that Egyptian line that they had released years ago and have not really touched much since. I think this is a step in the right direction and a really cool way to reintroduce mummies and kind of Egypt and that whole theme back into Spooky Town. And I think it makes total sense for this year's collection. It's great with the huge Egyptian kind of mummy head at the top with that evil grin. And then I love how there's that indoor scene that you can really peek in and see what awaits you, like the description said. I think that there is a lot more to this piece than initially meets the eye. So I highly recommend kind of zooming in, looking at it from a lot of different angles, because I think there's some really cool details here and there. And I know this will definitely be on my list this year, and I suspect it will be on a lot of other people's lists as well. Here we have Agathas Apothecary. Let's read the description that Lemax has included. For all of your mystical potion and ingredient needs, head to Agathas Apothecary. This spooky storefront, complete with green frogs, smiling pumpkins, and gossiping witches, is the perfect embodiment of a spellbound shopping experience. Every floor has something to catch the eye. Don't disturb the witch at work on the balcony. The glowing features on the side of the store serve to emphasize the magical activities taking place within. It's important to call out that this piece is a sights and sounds piece, meaning that there is a soundtrack and we do see a lot of movement. I think there's a lot of cool elements here, like lights that flicker, turn on and off, as well as the rotating feature in the bottom left-hand side. We also have a skeleton who's sitting on top of the roof just above a turning gear on the right-hand side of the piece. And we get to see that gear turning from the inside as well as the shadows bounce off of the windows in the front. I love that we have some skeletons and witches incorporated here. So I know that I like to have some moving elements, so it'll be really nice to see that. I think this is going to end up being a really strong one. I would like to have seen a little more detail on the brick in the front of the building, but I get that they're trying to maybe play off that. It's like a newer edition or something like that. I do think that the colors are really strong too, and like every other Lemax piece this year, from head to toe, there's always something to look at. I think they really honed in on the details, and that's really nice to see as a collector. I think that, we're kind of going back to some of the basics here after, collectors have voiced their opinions in previous years. So I do think that this one is going to be a knockout, and I cannot wait to see it in person. Up next is Bailey and Bella Pet Shop. Before we get into it, I'm going to read a quick description that Lemax has written on their website for this building. The Bailey and Bella Pet Shop is decked out in all of its traditional Halloween-themed decorations. As you can see, someone is having a little trouble with the black cat on the roof, but we think he's got a few of his 9 lives left. Take in all the great detail on this storefront, from the delicate carved pumpkins to the trick-or-treater on the street. There's even a cheeky dog waiting for the cat to come down. Now, the Bailey and Bella Pet Shop is a lighted building, and I think it's a great addition to Spooky Town this year. It's really going to play up and keep that cutesy Spooky Town trick-or-treat type atmosphere that so many collectors love. I think starting from top to bottom, the signage is right on point. It truly looks like a real storefront that is decorated for Halloween. It includes those cute little pumpkin lights in the top and the Happy Halloween sign with a few jack-o'-lanterns and the witch in the front. And then obviously the black cat and the pumpkin at the bottom is just for added effect. I think this is going to be an instant classic to anyone's main street in their town, and it's great to see one of these pieces coming through this year, especially just as a lighted building. I think that adds to the quaint and trick-or-treat nature of it. Up next is the Poison Pumpkin Potpourri. Lemax has offered the following description. There's always something not so delicious on the menu at the Poison Pumpkin Potpourri. Making the most of all the jack-o'-lanterns left over from Halloween, the witches conjure up all manner of takeaway dishes to tempt the folks of Spooky Town. On the menu today is a pumpkin stew, but they aren't telling us what the other ingredients are. Is it ghoulishly good or horrifically horrible? Maybe leave your taste buds at the door. Now we can confirm that this piece is a lighted building. There's no technical sights or sounds here, but I think that'll really lend a lot to the visuals. It has some stunning colors. We have purple lights, some green lights underneath the pumpkin potpourri sign in the front highlighting the witches, and then on the far right side it looks like we have a couple of yellow lights that light up that corn cob with the spiders on it all yellow. And then the special feature about this piece appears to be that it shoots mist out of the top of the pumpkin's stem in the main facade, which is really exciting. I think it's great whenever we can see extra added features like some kind of water vapor or mist. And I know this is a technology that Lemax has been using recently, especially in their Christmas Village lines. So it's exciting to see it continued in Spooky Town. I think regardless, this piece is going to be instantly iconic just because of all of the pumpkin theming on it. I know that's a huge hit with collectors, and I think it's going to be on the list for a lot of collectors this year, and I'm just excited to see how people incorporate it into their villages. Here we have the Witch's Cottage. On Lemax's website, it has the following description, which I'll read now. Number 13 Spooky Town is not unlucky for the witches who call this cozy cottage home. Complete with climbing creepers, shimmering candlelight, and wooden shutters, the Witch's Cottage is almost too cute for the hags who cast their spells, cook up potions, and sell poisoned apples. Watch them draw water from their well, carve pumpkins, and look after the pet cat. Black, of course. Don't forget the witch on the roof, or the hag on her broom as you pass by, at a safe distance, of course. Now, this building is confirmed to be a lighted building, and I think it totally makes sense for the type of structure that we're seeing here. This kind of echoes a trick-or-treat house style building merged with witches who are supposed to be a little bit more evil. So in the description, I think it's totally accurate. It's almost too cute of a house to be hosting all these witches and all the evil things that are going on there. I do think this is a unique type of building that we haven't seen before in Spooky Town. It's, like I said, it's one of those neighborhoody looking houses with some technical, like witches and monsters incorporated. I do like how they don't directly use a witch hat to build the structure, but it kind of references and echoes the shapes of witch hats on the far right side with that conical structure, and then the rest of the points and multiple roof structures on the house itself. So I think overall this is going to be a really great building to go next to a cemetery or in someone's haunted grove. I think that it's just creepy enough that you could find it somewhere in a cemetery or a forest, kind of in its own secluded area, maybe even on top of a little mountain or something like that. The number 13 being incorporated is really cool too. Personally, I'm a Friday the 13th fan, and I know this is just another superstitious number. So I think it'll be a great addition to anyone's collection, and people that love the witch theme out there, this will be just a great another low-key piece to kind of add without being too upfront and too pronounced and coming off as tacky. Here we have Be Afraid Clocksmith. Before we get into this piece, let's hear the description. You might not think the dead need to keep track of time, but how else will they know when the witching hour has begun? Take a look inside this wonderfully spooky store, and you will see the skeleton clocksmith himself working on his latest job. As they say, there is no rest for the wicked. The big, bold, sinister clock on the second floor is a real standout. Personally, this piece reminds me of the Cursed Cuckoo Clock, which dropped a couple of years ago, and I think it's just because of the same nature of dealing with time and kind of echoing the shapes of a real grandfather clock or some kind of other cuckoo clock that would hang on your wall. I know that this is going to be a great addition to Main Street in Spooky Town, and I do like that there's a focused Clocksmith character that we can look at and see a little inside scene. This lighted building, I think, makes sense for the collection, and it wouldn't feel like a complete year without some necessary town pieces like this one. This is the Sugared Pumpkin Candy Shop. I'll read Lemax's description before we get into it. There might be sugared pumpkins, but at the Spooky Town candy shop, there is little else for a sweet tooth. Untouched by the Candyman, the treats here include toxic witch's brew, cotton candy, made fresh every day, ice cream, and chewy monster claws. The stock is more likely to bite you than you bite it. Spooky Town residents visit the candy shop every Halloween. Sadly, it's all trick and no treat. Now, we do have another lighted building from this year's collection, and honestly, I'm not mad about it. I think that Lemax has really been able to focus on the details this year and really make sure every piece feels fully decked out from head to toe without having to worry about all these extra animatronics and sounds and things like that. So I think this is going to fit really perfectly into town. I love how orange it is and how it has all of, the kind of candy elements in the front with that really cool sign that says Sugared Pumpkin Candy Shop. I think that it looks really professional and it's like a really cute artistic piece. And the color, I think, also is coming off as not tacky. I think that they used a really tasteful shade of orange, and the fact that it's kind of built out of a pumpkin adds to that kind of quirky nature and like the quirkier side of Spooky Town. I think this is going to be a huge hit with anyone who loves the pumpkin pieces, and it's definitely going to be very collectible this year and in all upcoming years. So I'm really excited for it. Last, we have included the Shinbone family reunion. There's nothing like a good family reunion, even from one from beyond the grave. Join the party at the Shinbone family reunion. Grab a cool one from the coffin icebox and let loose with an uncle from way, way back. With relatives popping out of every grave and equally dead fish being cooked on the grill, this is definitely a party not to be missed. And what better location than a fully equipped pumpkin trailer? This is an interesting lighted building. I think it's definitely going to be one of those smaller pieces we see. It looks like it only has a couple of lights, but it's really cute, I think that there's so much potential here. You could throw this in a cemetery if you wanted to. Could be in a park, or maybe, just off on some kind of like remote area within your village, because it's a cute little scene when you stumble upon it. I love the incorporation of the chef's hat on top of the jack-o'-lantern head with that one skeleton on the right-hand side. It looks like another skeleton's just getting to the party, kind of stepping out of the crypt on the left-hand side. I think overall this will be a really great piece for those who kind of want to spice up their cemetery a little bit, or maybe just have a really cute moment to stumble upon in a park or something like that. I definitely think that this one is going to be snatched off the shelves quickly, especially because of that big pumpkin right in the middle, and I know everyone loves the pumpkin pieces in Spooky Town. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you really enjoyed it. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the Lemax 2022 Spooky Town collection. What are your favorite buildings? What ones are you more interested in seeing in person? And what are maybe some things that you thought they should have done better? Just leave a comment below, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you again. We'll see you all next time.